Here is a statistic that should concern every rider. The vast majority of motorcycles are scrapped, parted out, or require a complete engine rebuild before they ever reach 50,000 miles. We tend to accept this because we view bikes as weekend toys or high-performance machines that are destined to burn bright and die young. But that assumption is expensive and incorrect. Mechanical longevity isn't about luck, and it isn't about buying the most expensive brand. It comes down to physics, fluid dynamics, and understanding how your machine actually works. The reality is that manufacturers design maintenance schedules to market a low cost of ownership. They aren't designing those schedules to keep your bike on the road for 20 years. If you want to push an engine past the 100,000-mile mark without a catastrophic failure, you have to ignore the marketing and respect the mechanics. Here are the 7 proven habits that make that mileage a reality. Habit 1. The severe service oil strategy. To understand why your engine fails early, you first have to understand the specific environment inside your crankcase. In a car, the engine oil, transmission fluid, and clutch fluid are usually separate systems. But on your motorcycle, you are likely dealing with a shared sump design. This means the same quart of oil is responsible for lubricating the high-speed piston rings, cooling the clutch plates, and protecting the transmission gears all at the same time. This creates a brutal environment for lubrication that car engines never face. When you shift gears, the transmission teeth mesh together with immense pressure, and this action literally shears the oil molecules in half. It physically breaks down the polymer chains that give the oil its viscosity. At the same time, your wet clutch is shedding microscopic friction material every time you leave a stoplight. This material ends up suspended in the oil. If you follow the owner's manual, which might recommend changing oil every 6,000 or even 10,000 miles, you are essentially pumping liquid sandpaper through your engine for thousands of miles. Those suspended particles from the clutch and the sheared down oil are being forced into your delicate cam bearings and rod bearings. This is why you need to adopt the severe service schedule. Forget the high mileage intervals in the manual. You need to change your oil every 3,000 miles or annually, whichever comes first. By doing this, you are physically removing the clutch debris and the sheared oil before it can wear down the metal surfaces inside the engine. It is the cheapest insurance you can buy. Fresh oil carries the heat away and keeps the metal parts separated. Old oil is just an abrasive slurry slowly grinding your engine tolerances away. Habit 2. The thermal expansion warm-up. Keeping the oil clean is the first step, but how you treat the engine in the first 5 minutes of a ride determines if that oil can actually do its job. There is a persistent myth that you should let a motorcycle idle for 10 minutes before riding to warm it up. This is actually damaging your engine. When an engine idles for that long, it develops hot spots because there is no airflow through the radiator or over the cooling fins, and it causes fuel dilution in the oil. However, hopping on and hitting the rev limiter immediately is even worse. The problem lies in thermal expansion. Your engine is made of dissimilar metals. The pistons are typically aluminum, which expands rapidly when heated. The cylinder liners are often steel, which expands much slower. If you rev the engine hard while it's cold, the aluminum piston expands before the steel liner has time to catch up. This reduces the clearance between the piston and the wall to dangerous levels, leading to piston slap or even a cold seizure where the piston physically scrapes the cylinder wall. Here is the correct procedure for longevity. Start the bike and let it idle for just 30 to 60 seconds. This is enough time for the oil pump to build pressure and circulate oil to the top end of the engine. After that minute, ride the bike gently. Keep the RPMs low and the load light. You are using the gentle load of riding to generate heat evenly throughout the engine block. Your goal is to get the oil up to its operating temperature of 212 degrees Fahrenheit, 100 degrees Celsius. You need to hit this temperature to boil off the condensation that forms inside the crankcase. If you only take short trips where the oil never gets hot enough to evaporate that water, the water mixes with sulfur in the fuel to create acids that eat your bearings. Habit 3. The valve clearance discipline. Once the engine is warm and the oil is flowing, there is a silent killer that most riders ignore until the engine loses compression and refuses to start. Valve clearance checks are the most skipped service in motorcycling because they are expensive to have a shop do and intimidating to do yourself. But skipping this is exactly why many bikes die at 40,000 miles. Here is the mechanics of what happens. As your engine runs, the valves are constantly hammering against the valve seats in the cylinder head thousands of times per minute. Over time, this hammering causes the valve face and the seat to wear down. On most modern shim under bucket designs, this wear causes the valve to recede deeper into the head. This means the clearance between the cam and the valve gets tighter, not looser. This is critical to understand because of the myth that noisy valves are bad valves. Actually, a ticking valve is a happy valve because it has clearance. The danger comes when the valves go silent. When the clearance gets too tight, the valve can no longer close completely against the seat. The valve relies on touching the seat to transfer its heat to the cylinder head. If it can't close fully, it can't cool down. Worse, when the valve stays slightly open during the combustion stroke, superheated gases at thousands of degrees rush past the valve face like a blowtorch. This melts the edge of the valve, creating what we call a burnt valve. Once this happens, you have zero compression and you need a complete cylinder head rebuild. You cannot hear a tight valve. It sounds perfectly smooth right up until the moment it fails. That is why checking your clearances at the factory interval, usually every 15,000 to 24,000 miles, is non-negotiable if you want to see the odometer roll over to 6 figures. You are verifying that the valves are actually closing and sealing the combustion chamber. Habit 4, the drivetrain lifeline. While the internal parts need precision, the external power delivery system needs constant hygiene. If you ignore your final drive, you aren't just risking a breakdown. You are risking the life of the engine itself. Whether chain, belt, or shaft, this system is the fuse that blows first. On chain-driven bikes, a neglected, rusty, or kinked chain creates massive shock loads every time you accelerate. Those shock waves travel straight back up the chain and hammer the output shaft of the transmission. If a chain snaps at speed, it often whips forward and punches a hole right through the expensive engine case. That is instant death for the motorcycle over a part that costs $100. You need to understand the anatomy of a modern chain. It relies on O-rings or X-rings to seal lubrication inside the pins. Once you let those seals dry out or rust, the internal lubrication vanishes, metal grinds on metal, and the chain overheats. But the opposite mistake is just as deadly. Riders often tighten their chain like a guitar string. A chain that is too tight pulls relentlessly on the countershaft seal and the output shaft bearing. Eventually, that bearing fails, and splitting the engine cases to fix it costs more than the bike is worth. If you have a shaft drive, don't get arrogant. That final drive gear oil is often ignored for years, leading to spline failure. Check your tension, lube the seals, and change the gear oil. Habit 5, the hydraulic fluid. Flush mechanical parts are obvious because you can see them moving, but there are two fluids sitting in your bike right now, turning into acid. Most riders treat hydraulic fluids as permanent fixtures, but they are chemically active. Let's start with brake fluid. It is hygroscopic, which means it chemically attracts and absorbs moisture from the atmosphere. It pulls water through the microscopic pores of your rubber brake hoses. This isn't just about squishy brakes. That water accumulates in your expensive ABS module and calipers, causing internal corrosion that seizes pumps and pistons. Replacing a critical ABS unit can easily cost over $1,000. Furthermore, as the water content rises, the boiling point of the fluid drops drastically. Under hard braking, wet fluid boils, turning into gas bubbles that give you total lever failure when you need it most. Then there is your coolant. Over time, the corrosion inhibitors in coolant break down and the fluid becomes acidic. It becomes an electrolyte that starts eating away at your aluminum cylinder head, your head gasket, and your water pump seals from the inside out. You won't see a leak until the damage is done. The rule for longevity is simple. Flush your brake fluid every 2 years and your coolant every 2 to 3 years, regardless of how many miles you rode. Think of this not as performance maintenance, but as internal corrosion protection. You are flushing out the chemical byproducts that want to eat your engine. Habit 6, the ethanol defense system. Fluids degrade over time, but modern fuel degrades even faster when the bike is parked, and this is where most low-mileage damage actually occurs. Motorcycles often sit for days or weeks between rides, And that inactivity is the enemy. The culprit is ethanol. Most pump gas contains up to 10% ethanol, which attracts water from the air. When that fuel sits stagnant, damaging phase separation occurs. The water binds with the ethanol and actually sinks to the bottom of the tank, right where your fuel pump pickup sits. This separated mixture is highly corrosive. It rusts steel tanks from the inside, sending metal flakes of rust into your fuel pump. It gums up fuel injectors and creates a hard varnish that clogs carburetor jets so badly the bike won't idle. If you have ever tried to start a bike after winter and found it dead, ethanol is usually the reason. To defend your fuel system, you need to minimize the airspace in your tank. A full tank leaves little room for condensation to form on the tank walls. If you know the bike will sit for more than 2 weeks, add a high-quality fuel stabilizer and run the engine for 5 minutes to get that treated fuel into the injectors or carbs. For winter storage or bikes that rarely get ridden, go out of your way to find ethanol-free recreational fuel. It costs more, but it stops the chemical rotting of your fuel system while you sleep. Habit 7. Mechanical sympathy and shift technique. Maintenance happens in the garage, but the final habit happens every time you twist the throttle. We call it mechanical sympathy. It is the ability to feel what the machine is doing rather than forcing it. This is most critical when shifting gears. Unlike cars, which use synchronizers to smooth out gear changes, motorcycles use dog gears. These are large metal teeth that physically interlock. This is why you often see sport bikes with second gear failures. When you get lazy with your shifting or stomp on the lever without finesse, you are slamming these metal dogs together. Over time, this bends the shift forks and rounds off the edges of the dogs, leading to a transmission system that slips out of gear. You have to be deliberate, but the biggest abuse comes from lugging the engine. This happens when asking for high acceleration at low RPMs in a high gear. You might think keeping the RPMs low is saving the engine, but you are wrong. Lugging places a massive, hammering load on the connecting rod bearings and forces the piston skirts to rock violently against the cylinder walls. It acts like a sledgehammer on every power stroke. Downshift. Keep the engine in its happy power band. Learn to rev match or blip the throttle on downshifts to reduce driveline shock. Smooth inputs reduce the stress on every bearing and gear link, making the difference between a bike that feels new at 50,000 miles and one rattling itself apart. Hitting 100,000 miles isn't about buying the most expensive motorcycle. It is simply about consistency. Proper maintenance will always be cheaper than a new monthly payment. Start today by picking just one neglected habit from this list. If you want to know exactly which specific oil is best for your bike's wet clutch to prevent that early wear we talked about, watch this video next where I break down the science. Subscribe now for more.